so much for letting us be a part of your journey. We are here with an Outliers Edge live roundtable with two extraordinary outliers who continuously find ways to up-level themselves and to bring out their impact out in a way that supports the people that they're with, but also challenges them to climb new mountains and beyond. Let's bring them all onto the platform here. We have DJ Sprague and Denley McIntosh. DJ, Denley, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. I'm honored and excited for the conversation we're going to have today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, looking forward.
So what I like to do is make sure outliers get a chance to get to know you as we are getting started. The way I like to do this is to see the game that you're playing. I think that like being out there as an outlier, choosing to show up the way that you do, it comes with a lot of responsibility and impact and power. And at the same time, we can have some fun with it. So DJ, let's start with you. If you had to tell us here about you and the game you're playing, what would you say?
Yeah, we're playing the game of asymmetrical thinking and growth for our company and our clients. And what does that mean? It means looking for, we've all heard about the 80-20 rule, right? Find the 20% of things that generate 80% of the revenue, the growth, the results. We've also heard about outsized growth, outsized opportunities. We've heard about leverage points. And the reality is that as a serial entrepreneur, having started many companies, you have to use leverage points because you typically don't come into the game with truckloads full of money, tons of resources, people, technology, and endless budgets to grow your business. So you've got to think asymmetrical. You've got to think outside the box. You've got to think new, different, and find those critical leverage points that you can deploy to get outsized success. And that's the game we're playing for our clients in the e-commerce world. We wrote an entire book about it. And that's the game we're playing for our own business.
I love this here. Like in my mind, when you said, I'm like, oh, this is the outlier game, like to be able to take that component and saying like, hey, you're not like, what's actually working and how do you get outsized returns? How do you continue to get, out of my words, outlier results with it, right? Not everyone's going to get these results, but what I'm hearing from you is that you're really good at finding the parts that matter, the leverage points, and being able to use that to create far better results and success for people than most others would. Does that feel like pretty spot on there?
That's correct. Yeah, exactly. It keeps me up at night, right?
Yeah, I get
looking
you.
for those outlier opportunities that others aren't using, leveraging, or seeing.
Yeah. Oh, I'm appreciative that you're here, DJ. I'm excited to see how we play with that here in today's conversation. All right. Awesome. Denley, let's give outliers a chance to get to know you. Do you mind letting us know more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Yeah. Denley McIntosh, Denley W. McIntosh. And, I throw in the middle name because why not? Why only use it for your obituary? You may say what that W stands for. It's Washington. I'm actually named after my dad, Norman Washington McIntosh, and the Norman Washington is named after the Washington. In terms of Michael Norman Washington Manley, just talking about the Jamaican statesman and how his kind of legacy kind of got thrown over to my dad in terms of the name and being able to change the game of voting for folks in Jamaica. Because at the time, people that looked like us, Black folks, weren't able to vote in Jamaica, considering it was a predominantly, obviously, folks of African descent. So Norman Washington Manley. So I got my dad's Norman Washington, so I inherited Washington from there. Why is that significant? Because I find myself engaged in the game of changing folks' hearts. DJ talked about changing the way that people think. And I like to say I'm in that game too, changing hearts, changing minds, changing the hands, the way that we interact with one another. And so by looking at heart, head, hands, we're talking about making an impact, not only on a personal level, but also a systematic level. I say systematic because my background is electrical engineering, but I moved into the humanities. So I studied theology, philosophy, understanding cultural worldviews. How those two meld together, let me tell you, when you're talking about an organization, they want to know about how do we think differently? So what are those tools in place that I, as a senior leader, can look at this thing from not only looking ahead, but also looking back? Senior leaders sometimes have a challenge of looking back and unpacking the past so they don't repeat the past in the future. So we have conversations on that. But where the engineering side comes in is the practicality, right? Engineering is about taking the science and making it moving towards reality for the good of the whole. And so trying to work with an organization and say, here's the science, here's the thinking, this is what it looks like on the ground level with your folks on the ground.
I love
that. That is what I do. And then as I also do that with individuals I meet, taking their thinking up high and coaching them out on their day-to-day.
This sounds fun. Like, when I hear this, what I'm hearing is like, I'm glad we're getting like this element of like what you do out there. I'm also really curious as we have the conversation about who you be as you do it.
Yes.
Who you be as you do it. There's a question that was coming to me. I got really curious as the two of you are talking, and I don't actually ask this for this being Outliers Edge. I think I've asked it maybe like twice ever, but I'd like to start off with this one for you today. Like, I invited both of you here because you are each outliers. Now, one of the reasons I like the term outlier is because it's like it's a made up term. You get to choose like what it means to you, right? And for some reason, it resonated. So, would you mind sharing with us here, like in what ways do you show up as an outlier? And we'll put this in two different parts. One, like for yourself, like how you show up in the world, like just generally speaking, how do you show up as an outlier? And then on the other side of it, it's like how does that part of you end up making your clients better and so on and so forth? All right. Anyone want to take that one on to get us started? I want to just see a little bit about who we're playing with.
Yeah, I'll take that on.
Thanks,
personally, as an outlier, I've always believed in lifelong learning, constantly learning, reading, studying, courses, webinars, conferences, books, podcasts, anything I can get my hands on. Multiple degrees from college, over 72 certifications, continuously learning. Just completed a 4-day intensive live event with Tony Robbins. Just always looking for self-development, professional development, spiritual development, self-improvement. Just I think self-improvement is really important. And as Tony Robbins says, when you stop growing, you start dying, paraphrasing. But I think just constantly growing, constantly pushing yourself, constantly learning, and constantly helping. There's just great reward, as you're doing with your wonderful podcast here, right? Is just constantly helping other people. So that's kind of how I show up as an outlier. And as I said earlier, just looking for leverage points, looking for ways to get outsized results from minimal input. And that's how I do it professionally and personally. That's my outlier position.
Yeah, I'm feeling it, DJ. Denley, hit us with it.
Yeah. I think what makes me an outlier, and just speaking of what DJ, I'm a unicorn. I'm a polymath. I like to use the word polymath. It made me say, what is that? It's kind of akin to Renaissance. Like, my brain goes in many directions. And so I'm a generalist in the sense that I dabble in few things, maybe not a master at one, but I am a master in terms of integrating those experiences as a whole. And I think that's relevant to my client. So let me just tell you, I probably had over 10 careers. I was a newspaper boy. I've worked in a medical laboratory. I've worked on the fairway of like things like maybe akin to Disney World. I've worked as a caddy. I've worked in inventory. I've worked in the warehouse. I've worked in logistics. I've worked in marketing. I've worked in sales. I've worked as an engineer in process. I've worked in strategy. I'm a podcaster too, like yourself. And so why bring that all up? So when I sit to my clients and say, like, what is the experience that my employees and staff going through? I can relate. I've been on the ground. I know how to put boxes on trucks that's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. I understand the experience. I also know sitting with high level government and executives and hearing their stories about policy and regulations. So I've seen the gamut. So what makes me useful for my client, that I can walk in the shoes of their team members and their staff. And that makes me an outlier, because folks don't come with all that sort of experience. I didn't tend to go down that road. But when I have gone out the road, I said, good Lord, how do I integrate everything to a whole that I can make it work make this scrambled egg work?
Denley, there's something that came out when you said I didn't intend that just made me it got me laughing at my core, because I was imagining like an 18-year-old Denley or an 18-year-old outlier overall. That's like, you know what? For the next part of my career, I'm going to go and do like 10 different things. And yet like that is not uncommon at all. Like the number of hyphens that people like will put in, like when they come to this slash this slash this slash this. DJ, you said like you're like I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started multiple businesses. Like and there's this component that I think when I hear that, it makes me laugh from the gut. But I think the reason it makes me laugh is because there's something about it that's still uncomfortable. Right. And one of the things that I'm enjoying, like, and it's uncomfortable, I think, in like comparison to like the outside world where it's like someone's like picked one thing and they've done it their whole life and they've gone through it, right? Or the conventional wisdom that like you're supposed to get really good, what a master of that, a jack of all trades, master of none, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but there's something beyond there, and I want to see like y'all have continued to, you have a track record of success, like as you keep going through different things, and I'm curious about like what are some of the unconventional thoughts that you have, some of the unconventional ways that you like navigate your way to success in different things. It can come with a story, but it might just be like a mantra that you have. But I'm curious about like what, like how do you continue to make your success happen this way?
I can.
I like this. It's a good question because both of y'all wanted to jump in, so I love it. Go ahead.
I've got a story, if I may. When I was 20 years old in college, I was broke. My parents didn't have money; they were in fact divorced, and I had to work my way through college. And I had this crazy idea to start a luxury limousine business. I was going to undergraduate school at UC Santa Barbara, and there was a lot of money there. And anybody that wanted to go anywhere from Santa Barbara had to first get to the Los Angeles airport. And so I had this idea of starting a luxury limousine service that specialized in taking people from Santa Barbara to Los Angeles or the cruise ships in Long Beach and San Pedro. Because everybody else, there was 13 other limousine services in Santa Barbara, 13. And they were all focused on the weddings and the 21st birthdays and the anniversaries and the graduations and all the typical stuff that always happened when? Nights and weekends. So I thought, well, what about Monday through Friday? What's happening with these cars then? Nothing. So I actually subleased a car from another company and used their car during the day when they weren't using it. So I made money on an idle asset that wasn't making them any money. And then I made enough money to buy them. And then I bought another competitor. And I was 20 years old and I had no money to start with. I literally did this on a handshake and a $20 loan for gas. But then I figured out this leverage point, again, asymmetrical thinking, which was going to the 21 different travel agencies. Because back in the day, there was no online, there was no Google, there was no Travelocity, et cetera. You had to go to travel agency. And so I went to all of the 21 travel agencies with handmade brochures. I took pictures of my cars and typed it out and made photocopies and brought these to the travel agencies. Of course, built in a little commission for them because I know that they work in commission, and had them do the booking for me. So I didn't have to do anything. They would just call me up and say, hey, got a trip for you Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, et cetera, et cetera. And so that really was a leverage point that allowed me to grow without a single dollar in advertising, marketing, promotion, et cetera. I just went to the decision makers and the influencers that could drive a ton of business, and ended up buying another competitor in Anaheim as well, and ended up with 3 different companies by the time I was 21. And that was kind of fun. So that was a way of really leveraging assets when you have nothing to work with.
I hear this. I hear this here, and I'm curious what your response to the unconventional question is going to be, Denley. But I want to just jump off of this real quick, DJ. There's a client I was talking to yesterday, and one of the things that came up in that conversation was this element of like, this thing that I did, it came so easy. I got this client, I barely did anything. Like it just came easy, you know? And when I hear you talk, I understand that underneath all this, like is the, you had to go actually take the pictures, make sure the car was clean. Like you had to actually be good at delivering. Like there's a lot of like the actual work that comes in there that is not so easy. But I think there's something in that space of the leverage points and the asymmetrical returns that I'd love to kind of talk to you from like the standpoint of like an outlier who might be thinking to themselves, I have to work hard for this. If it comes easy, if I'm getting like, I hear it, I'm like, it can be that easy. It's like you can have a full like roster, and all you're doing is making 13 different relationships versus having to go and do hundreds on an ongoing basis, so on and so forth. And I would love to see like if you can speak to any outlier that's having that thought in their mind right now. Like, what would you say to that outlier?
Yeah, I'd say look at the wellhead. Look at where
What's the wellhead? What's that?
The wellhead, where the decisions are made, the beginning of the river, right? Everybody wants to jump in the river somewhere down the road. But if you look at where this thing originates, decisions, influence, find out where decisions are made. So another quick story, I was in sales at Eastman Kodak. I was selling B2B, copiers, duplicators, like Xerox, right? We're a competitor to Xerox. And one of my biggest clients in my territory was a company called Kinko's, which is now FedEx Office.
Mm-hmm.
And halfway through my first year, 6 months in, I got a call from corporate headquarters and said, "You're not going to make your quota. And if you don't make your quota first year, you're done." So I thought, okay, how am I going to figure this out? I went to the wellhead. I figured out where decisions are made for Kinko's, which had hundreds of locations, obviously. On my own dime, I flew from Salt Lake City, where I was officed, to Ventura, California, where corporate headquarters was. And I started making relationships with the top decision makers in the headquarters. And not only did I make my quota in the remaining back half of the year, but I far exceeded it and won all kinds of sales awards, et cetera. So again, it's go to the wellhead, go to the top, go to the chief decision maker, do what it takes to break through, make that relationship, get noticed, add value, understand their business. By the way, as a backstory to that, I spent my weekends on my own dime working behind the counter at Kinko's to understand their business, not being paid, just figuring out their business, so that I could talk to the decision makers with real knowledge on workflows, capacities, equipment, et cetera. And anyway, rest is
that was this is like outliers. Did you catch it? Did you catch the amount of work that DJ was doing? Right? He said twice in that story. He's like, on my own dime, right? On his own dime, on his own time. He went and he like learned the business, got in it, right? Like that's the outlier way. And so if you're hearing things and you're wondering here's my ask of you. My ask is, where are you waiting for someone to come and make it easy for you? Where are you hearing things that people are saying and being like, well, I guess I just need to go and find a decision maker. And where are you actually not like leaning into your own asymmetric gifts, your like the things that most other people wouldn't do, your own dime and your own time to put in there. Like DJ, when you say that there, like it makes me light up because there's a component to it. Like I think there's like an outlier level of work. You got the results most people didn't get because you did what most people wouldn't do. And so exactly. I really appreciate that. Denley, I want to hear from you here. You can go back to the original question. There may be something that comes to your mind as DJ was speaking here. The original question was around how do you show up as an outlier and the element of like the unconventional thinking that you have. Like how do you leverage that for you?
Yeah, and DJ talked about Kinko's. I have mixed memories. There was the sorrow of working on my thesis and going to that Kinko's to get photocopies and making endless streams of copies for my thesis and handing that in. But the joy to know that Kinko's was around after midnight, it was there for me. It was there when those little late night runs, because as an engineer at that point, it was a godsend in terms of the photocopier before we really had all these devices. So I just want to say that. So kudos to that. But we're talking about stories and that kind of studying being an engineer at the time, and then I said it, my myriad of careers and pivoting out of that. But that life as an engineer was seminal in terms of what I thought the organizations should be and what I was doing that was really I would just say just novel. Things about belonging in the workplace. I was thinking about that in my diapers. Well, maybe not that far, but but when I was in the plant, I worked in a tier 3 automotive, and tier 3 simply means that they're the kind of last stop before products get to the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturer. You're talking about the Fords, you're talking about the General Motors, you're talking about the time, at least it was Chrysler, and now I think it's Stellantis on that. So we were making those parts, and as a young engineer coming out of school, right, I was a manufacturing process engineer, kind of set the machineries on the ground, making sure the product goes through the machineries, train up the staff, and then make sure the products get into the box and ship them off. So I had the opportunity to kind of do the end to end, looking at new prototypes. And I remember working with a gentleman who his name was Joseph, and an elderly gentleman in the 60s at the time, Polish, and he would never give me the time of day. He would always, when I bring my product to him to get it checked before we shipped it, he would shut the door on me, or he would tell me that, oh, I'm on break or I've got to go home. But I always looked at Joseph and says, you know what? You're always going to get more flies with honey than vinegar, and I'm going to be sweet to you. Remember the black cake? I'm going to continue to show up. Even though you see the black, I'm still going to be sweet. And Joseph, who took some time to warm up, but by hearing his story, when people used to crap on him, I would just sit down and say, hey, Joseph, how are you doing? What's going on in your life? And he would just lament and talk to me and open up. I would say, man, Joseph, I'm here for you. When you keep doing those things and being human to people in a industry that people feel like a cog in a wheel, literally dehumanized, it changes the game. And it got to the point where Joseph at one point calls me in the office, says, I need to talk to you. And I was like, oh my goodness, did I do something to you? No, sit down, shuts the door. And he looked at me with really teared up eyes. And he said, can you forgive me? I said, forgive me for what? For how I treated you. Because each and every time when I mistreated you, you came back with me with compassion, with others would not. And the reason he said for that, because I did not work with someone like you. It was, I mean, Joseph, he said, all I saw was you as a black, I only visioned kids like you playing basketball, doing up to no good. And you changed the way that I was thinking. That was so seminal for me, because it's like, how many other people in the workplace think that way, right? We have different views of how people show up in the work because of our stereotypes. And Joseph was an example where when you don't retaliate and you come back in kindness and love and deliver, it changes the equation. That's one story. I look at another guy named Joe.
Let's keep it a one for now. Let's keep it a one for now here. Like, I want to come here and unpack that and play with that a little bit here, because I think that there's a component here that I think is really important. Right? There's a reason why I call this outliers. Like honestly, like I have this thing that I call the 3% club, and it's because, like, when I was growing up, I worked as an actuarial consultant, and I found out that 3% of all actuaries in the U.S. were African American. I worked in a tech company, and I found out that 3% of all people working in tech at that time were African American. You know, someone literally counted up like the number of people, and they're like, oh, it's like there's 22 out of 1,100. We're like, it's like, to do the math on that. And so there's a component here of like actually being seen. You know, I think that like that's a lot of where I like to have these conversations here, and I ask the questions that I ask, because I think a lot of times we see the end outcome, but we don't, we're not always looking at who is the person that's underneath it, right? And I think that there's a realness to what it takes to play this unconventional game. Denley, I can't imagine it was easy to sit there and see a grown person who you're like in a professional environment shut you out, you know. But like, and I think this is one of the things that like goes underappreciated for outliers. I'd be curious what y'all thoughts on this here. But I think there's something about like outliers, and maybe it's the element of the asymmetric opportunities. But like we circumvent, like we choose a different path that most other people don't even know exists, you know. And so like the path of what I was hearing from you, Denny, is like I think I forget his name, Joseph, was like, he knew the path of, if I ignore, people come back and they ignore me, and like I feel justified, and so on and so forth. But you completely you broke the circuits. You're like, wait a minute, you're not giving me the response that I'm expecting. This is unconventional. You're going down a different path. I'll be curious for you all whether how that continues to play out for you in your work right now. And in particular, like, what's the challenging part about it? It's nice to talk about it. It's like, it's good to put it out to outliers, like, go ahead and like do this here, but I'm sure that it comes at a cost. So I'd be curious about like any of your responses to that, and then like the cost it's taken for you to show up differently than what other people like would would expect.
Yeah, you mentioned the 3% or the 3% club, right? And I read years ago that only 3% of people become entrepreneurs, are willing to start their own business, go out on a limb, take a chance, take a risk, and not take the road well traveled. Most people want comfort, reliability. If you study behavioral science, people want predictable, they want reliable. They don't like the unknown. And so part of that 3% mindset is really being able to have the confidence in yourself that I'm going to do this. Either I win or I lose. Either way, I learn, I grow, and I come out ahead, because you never come out ahead on the road well traveled. You typically come out ahead taking a chance, getting off the road, going down that little trail and seeing what's out there, an outlier, and discovering, because growth, life, reward is discovery. It's not the same old, same old. And I think most of your audience would recognize and agree and align with the fact that to be an outlier, you have to be willing to take risk and do something new and different.
Mhm. Yeah. If I can just add that 3%, I would venture to say that the number may be higher, depending on how we define maybe entrepreneurship. The person who is who braids hairs and says, I'm going to go out and braid other people's hair can be seen as an entrepreneur in that sense, and says they're getting paid. I think when we talk about what DJ, what you're saying is to kind of really solidify and create forms and structure. So I do think there's a spectrum. I think there are so many people who are entrepreneurs yearn for that, because when you talk about entrepreneur, there's a sense of freedom, right? There's a sense of charting your own course. Many doctors you can consider are entrepreneurs when they open up their practice, but they wouldn't call themselves entrepreneurs as such, right? Because they think that if I open up my clinic, I'm charting a way of wealth, or maybe not wealth initially, but health that others aren't doing. And I think when you talk about thinking differently in entrepreneur, you're saying that I'm charting a course that I think that's going to be different from others. I want that freedom. The problem is exhausting. That's the problem, because to get over we watched the Artemis launch not too long ago, and shout out to Canada out by the moon as well with my American brothers and sisters out there. But how much energy it took to launch, get it off the ground, that's a part that is you have to think differently, right? Because there's an energy that is required that most people cannot get over the hump. And it takes time, and it takes many, many years to sometimes launch off that pad. A lot of failures along that. And the other piece is there's no rules sometimes. That's the thing that's hard about it, to be an outlier, because there are no rules. There's a book that came out by the gentleman at Netflix, No Rules, rules essentially at Netflix. And this idea of that you're charting your own course, what it means to build culture. And I think when you're talking about launching on your own, you're charting your own course, you're setting your own rules. And the last thing I would have to say is that, and DJ, you can maybe attest to that, you're creating a little bit of a follower. You're creating a bit of you look at Apple, you're creating a movement that you really want people to say, hey, you're different. I don't care about the big companies. You got something going on. I want to jump on that movement. So I do think, and Dwayne, that DJ, that this idea of starting on your own and moving, you are creating a path. You're breaking rules, and you're creating a movement that you hope that will outlive you.
Yeah. DJ, you got anything on that one?
Yeah, tribalism, back to behavioral psychology, you're creating a tribe, and people like to identify with tribes. I mean, look at Nike. Look what happened there. An entire tribe around the Nike brand, and many brands do the same thing. You have to identify with the uniqueness, the value proposition, the positioning of a brand or a person that you're going to follow. and say, I believe in them. I like what they're saying. I like what they're doing. I like their mission, I like their vision, and get on board with that. Just back to my my limousine story. I created my own tribe. I had the red carpet service, and I actually rolled out a red carpet. Nobody else in the industry was doing that. Nobody in Southern California was doing that. And I would take my little Polaroid camera and take pictures of them on the red carpet in front of the limousine and give it to them at the end of the evening. And oh my, I mean, they absolutely flipped. They loved it. And the champagne and the crystal decanters and glasses versus plastic that everybody else was using. I wanted to go first class because what I wanted to create was a memory. I wanted to create an experience, a visceral experience that they would think about, that they would remember, and most importantly, that they would talk about and share with others. So that virality, that word of mouth, and creating that sense of, I won't work with anybody else. I only want to call, or 5-Star Limousine was my company. I only want to call 5-star because I want 5-star service. And it was a tribe. I had regulars that I drove, all the time because they loved the mission, the vision, and the experience. And we've got to create experiences. We've got AI, obviously. We've got lots of competition. It's very easy to start a business these days with AI. But at the end of the day, if you don't deliver a memorable, differentiated experience that people like and are wanting to share and spend extra money for, then you're just a commodity. You've got to stand out. You've got to be worth more, and you've got to be memorable. That's my opinion, and that's how I've grown all of my businesses, is being different.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. So both of you all are talking, and I just start smiling. I start smiling because, cause I'm like, yes, let's lean into this. Let's lean into this component of DJ. What I hear from you is you're constantly finding new ways and being like, all right, not only how can we be different, but it's like I'm hearing also how do we play at an exceptional level? How do we get more how do we get more from less? And where's the opportunity to really carve a space that is different from everyone else? I hear someone said, if you want people to remark about you, you got to be remarkable. You got to do remarkable things, And so when I hear that red carpet thing, is that was a remarkable experience, and those people remarked. They talked about you out in the world. It's quite simple. Sometimes things are really. I'm like, oh, if you want to be exceptional, you got to be the exception. And so part of what we're doing right now is talking about that simplicity of it, and and both leaning into it and the tension that comes from it. I can't believe.
Yeah. If I jump in terms of the tribalism, and I was just watching a documentary on Apple. I think it's 50th year, and how important it is for Apple to keep the tribe, right? As much as they're getting pressured, oh, you should adapt Android, you should be this and that, and they're like, no, we want our tribe. We want to be anti-establishment, even though they're established, but we still want the perception of being anti-establishment. It's fascinating, and why I bring this up in terms of being remarkable and be different. So I have a podcast, The Coach's Corner. And one of the things I found very interesting on my reach, because I marketed initially to people who are, executives or leaders, but really it's marketed to people who are growth minded. And I say this because when I'm on LinkedIn, there's a certain brand of folks that come to me and go through there. But when I'm on TikTok, my demographics are between the teenagers and young adults when I put on my stuff. And it got me thinking, is that talking about your tribe, that my tribe is anyone that says, I want to grow, I want to see a different world. And I think, and I look at the youth today who are hungering for something different, for a different message, something that's positive, something that's enriching, something that's empowering, as well as educating. They hear me and they start to follow me. So much so my children say, my friends follow you. Ew. And because my children are teenagers and they couldn't believe that their friends follow me on TikTok. They listen to my podcast. I said, well, my children said, why don't you? We always hear you, Dad. We don't need you. So here's the point. That's for me, that I know that I'm going to change the world.
Yeah.
By the message
You
I
already
put
are.
out there, for especially at any age, especially our next generation who's looking, they're clamoring for something that's positive because all they see sometimes is mayhem. Right?
Yeah, I love this. I love this. Like I'm grateful for the conversations that we're having because there's let me speak to Outliers first on this, right? So firstly, no, I'm grateful for this. Outliers, like this, let this one be one of your green lights. Like if like because Denley, DJ, they've all found different ways to take like who they are, how they see the world, and leverage that in like this really transformative ways, right? There's some component here of like I'm different, like so one, that's why you're gonna pay me so much, like that. Like I love that. I like this element of I had this thing that I used to carry with me that I'm like, oh, I'm too much. A lot of people thought I was too much, and now I walk around, I'm like, well, if it's not too much, it's not enough. That's it. If you want regular, go there. Go to your point. Go for the commodity. That's fine. But if you want exceptional, if you want like a remarkable experience, if you want a 5-star experience or whatever comes next, then like this is what it takes. And what I appreciate in here is I recognize for myself that I had slipped into a place of like looking for permission to go the extra mile, to be all fully in there. What would happen if, and like y'all are reminding me here that like what happens is that you create something exceptional. What happens is that you get to create something that like most people wouldn't think would be able to have, and you get to have that in your own world.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up our conversation here. What we're going to do is, we're going to do this. What I want to make sure is that every outlier out there knows how they can go deeper down the journey with you, right? And so if you can let them know, like let's say this: what's a project you're taking on that really excites you right now? Maybe even gives you like sweaty palms, like has you out on your edge, right, out of your comfort zone. What's a project you're taking on right now? What's a way that an outlier can go deeper down that journey with you if they'd like? DJ, let's start with you. Then we'll go to Denley, and I have one last question to wrap us up.
You bet. So the recent endeavor is cash flow. The book is cash flow. The product is cash flow. The book's on Amazon. Cash flow is, we completely broke the mold and redesigned the payment processing industry for e-commerce from the ground up. And what this does is it flips the script. And I like to say you have to be comfortable with discomfort. So, and differentiation. So we're very comfortable with being different and being uncomfortable because we don't care about what the competition is doing. We don't care about being 1% better than the competition or chasing the competition. We said, what if we created a payment processing platform that actually paid the e-commerce owner versus extracted 3% from every purchase? What if we actually found a way to generate 15% additional revenue through a series of tools that were subsidized through the payment processing platform to actually buy the software for the entrepreneur to increase their traffic, their conversion rate, reduce their expenses, drive more gross profit and net profit? Completely re-engineered the industry. Wrote an entire book about it, cash flow, and named the product after it because it does what it describes. It creates more cash flow. And nobody's doing that. And nobody would be comfortable doing that in the industry because it's never been done. But if you're not comfortable with discomfort and being different, then what are you going to do? You're going to follow the competition. So sweaty palms, spent 18 months building this, writing the book, doing the research, putting the products together, putting the entire systems together. And then we sent the book to a existing client of another one of our companies to simply review the book and give us the feedback. And he came back with, I love the book. How do I get started? So, and that was the whole point. Once you read the book, you can't not see it. You have to go forward with the solution because now you're realizing the pain. And the pain is that the average e-commerce website is spending 37.9% of their revenue on these revenue leaks. We found ways to solve those leaks and put money back in the pocket of the entrepreneur in terms of net profit, not gross revenue. Who cares about gross revenue if you don't take any money home? So that's what we solved.
That's fantastic here. I'm excited for you on this. Thank you for doing this work here. And I love DJ, like that what if question you just put in, like, well, what if we were able to get it? What if people were able to get money back? Like it's a really interesting question. I can't wait to read the book and get into the Outliers, get your hands on it. Where did they go to get their hands on the book?
Amazon. Or you can
All
go
right.
to cashflowpay.com and you can download a free digital and audio version. If you
Nice.
want the
And that's
physical
without a
book,
W, right? Cash flow without a
yes,
W.
yes, cash flow without a W,
Yeah.
right?
Perfect. Perfect.
Cashflowpay.com, and you can download the free digital and audio version.
Awesome. All right, Denley, let's come to you. What's the project you're taking on that's making you feel really courageous? And how can Outliers go deeper down the journey with you?
Yeah, I guess that there's probably a couple products here. All about learning development, as you've heard, in terms of uh, entering the growth mindset space, and whatever age or stage of life, I'm for you. And the Coach's Corner with Denley McIntosh, found on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you do your podcast, is a great way to get an introduction if you really want to come along with me, because it's there, it's accessible, it's free. Check it out. But we're in the 90th episode of really building people up, and we're really focusing on resilience. That's where a lot of my headspace is. Now, if you want to go the extra level with me, I've started a leadership program for executives, or just anyone who really wants to beef up their leadership skills in terms of EQ, emotional intelligence, CQ, cultural intelligence, and resilience, and bundling that together for a self-learned journey. If you're into that, great. You can look that up on the Coaches Corner .ca, the www.coachescorner.ca. And if you're interested in terms of an executive program, which is 12-month long, I got that working on. It's a big project to help leaders bring culture change to their organization. So that's a 12-month journey. You can check me out in there as well. If you want more information, it's hello@renewiq.ca. That's hello, HELO @RENEWIQ.ca for more information.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all. I'm glad you came here. The way we end every conversation is that each conversation we have is to be life changing, right? And so I want to make sure that we leave space for anything that you are taking away from this conversation yourself. We'll start with Denley, and then we'll go to DJ. We'll keep this to about like a minute here so we can wrap up before the top of the hour. But would you mind sharing with us an insight that you are leaving this conversation with, an insight or a takeaway that you're leaving this conversation? And if there was none, you can just be like, didn't really get one, but I had a great time. Like that's okay too. We'll go with Denley, and then we'll go to DJ to wrap this up here.
Yeah. I think the insight is I'm always taken aback of the way that people generate a living, and how that living can be not just a living, but a life. And when I listen to DJ in terms of limousine service, it didn't really dawn on me that, again, that's a viable business, a business that can flourish, a business that can really do well for your future cash flow. So I think when I kind of hear people, it's a reminder that the world is, yes, a lot of crazy happening in the world, there's a lot of mayhem, but there's a lot of ways that people can hustle the right way, and move from just a living to living a life, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Denley. Thanks for being here. And DJ, want to wrap us up?
I'm going to play off of what Denley said. Be human first. Passion, compassion, emotional intelligence. People spend most of their life staring at screens, and it's the human connection that really differentiates and stands out and causes people to want to be in your orbit and your tribe and your circle and work with your brand, and really just being human and thinking about the other person, what their needs are, what their perceptions are, and being likable, being kind, and differentiating in that way. Because I think as AI and technology gets more and more leverage, people are going to want more and more human experiences, and to feel validated and valued in that human experience.
I love it. Y'all, thank you so much for bringing here. Thanks for having a human experience here, and being real, and sharing like your actual journeys as we go along the way. Outliers, until the next time we talk, be you on purpose, journey on.